Okay, thank you very much. Nice to be here on Obehi Podcast again. I am Olutayo Adesina, Professor of History, Department of History, University of Ibadan. I have been with the University of Ibadan since December 1993.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started with this episode.
Talking about working in the academia, it's been wonderful also being a historian, especially an economic historian. From that pedestal, I have been able to contribute not only to knowledge, but also to public affairs as well as progressive change in my country.
Thank you so much for that, sir. It's an honor to talk to you. So today we are looking at the Nigerian economy from the point of view of digital age. This is the age of digital revolution, as it were. We are fully into it. So it will make sense to the Nigerian people, both home and abroad, that our economy should have equally been configured for it, because there is no way you are going to go back. We are living in this time, and there are characteristics of this time. One of the characteristics is that this is a digital economy now. So we're going to be looking at it now from the point of view of how is the state of the Nigeria economy in the digital age. Help us get a sort of a clear idea that then we're going to be moving down into it.
Well, one thing that I have come to learn when talking about Nigeria is not only to know how to periodize, but also to ensure you get your classifications right. You could not call Nigeria a modern society, so to speak. The population of the country has shown sufficient intergenerational mix for us to be able to say, well, Nigeria is both modern and traditional. And that's why we now have different generations trying to find a space for themselves under the sun. Right now, we have a large population of our youths who are gradually advancing into the ICT age, and they are doing very well. But the percentage is still very small. Even though they are technologically savvy, the percentage is still very small. We still have a larger population of those you call the analog generation. That is the overwhelming part of the population now. And that is why we are now trying to ensure that even the analog generation is tutored on what it means to live the digital age. So it's going to be gradual, but I must say that the young generation is taking the lead. But what has given that generation a poor image now, in the age of the ICT, is the propensity of that generation, at least the bad element within it, to commit fraud and crime with ICT. And that is why in Nigeria you hear about Yahoo Plus. These are the kind of things that is already giving that generation a bad image, and then everybody getting afraid of the ICT generation. You will sit in your home, and then of course somebody somewhere is withdrawing your money and you are getting the alert without knowing what was happening. So these are the kind of, but I must tell you that some of our sectors are moving into the ICT age, the digital age. The banking sector has done very well in that regard. I also remember that under Obehi Adesina as Minister for Agriculture, Agriculture also moved in. The educational sector is still far behind, which is tragic because that's the sector that should actually launch that digital revolution that we are going to use to move into the 21st century. Well, the telecommunication industry has moved very well into it. Um, Commerce, yes, you have e-commerce, but it is not versatile yet. It's only certain portions of the economy. Although right now, especially with this currency change, um, many of our market women are also beginning to see the advantages of moving into the digital age. So they also now go about with the POS, and they also have accounts and tell you to transfer the amount you wanted to pay into their account. So they are also moving gradually. But we will get a better sense of things if the educational sector moves. But right now, it's still behind all the other sectors in moving into digital age.
Thank you so much for that. That is important. Now, I want to look at the sort of the basis, as it were. Like I was saying before, we as a country, Nigeria, and by extension also other countries in Africa and Africans, as it were, cannot cannot possibly stay back and say the world should go on. The world cannot wait for us. We are going to have to. It's a movie train. We are going to run to join the train because you just simply cannot say, well, we were not prepared. It's not an excuse. This is the age of internet. You must work with it, and your economies must be equal to it because there is no alternative. Now, what I'm actually dragging at is the tools. What does it really need? As a country like Nigeria, for example, with the huge potential that we have, looking at infrastructure, what do we need to be able to be a key player in the digital economy? Because again, we cannot simply go and hide inside a rock and say we are not living in the 21st century. We are here and we must be present.
Well, three immediate things. The first one has to do with the change in our mindset. Without changing the mindset of the average Nigerian and making him or her to see the importance of the digital age to our existence, of course, nothing will change. We are still too much traditional in our thinking, in our practices and activities to be able to take advantage of the digitalization process going on all over the world. Yes, everybody is now using mobile technology, which is very good. The tele-density of Nigeria has improved significantly, that's fine. But the change in mindset will get better once the educational system also gets better, so that you begin to catch them young from the primary school, secondary school, university system. Of course, it has a bandwagon effect of spreading through the children to the outer society. So changing mindset is the first thing we must address. Then secondly, you have the problem of power. I'm sure we have one of the crudest power supplies in the continent of Africa. So until they address that, it's going to be too costly to get into the group of things in running these things. And then, of course, there is a energy crisis. There's energy crisis. To buy diesel to run a business makes it almost counterproductive because you push the cost back to the consumers. And so because of the high cost, that discourages consumers from a lot of things also. Then, of course, the third one is the critical infrastructure of the ICT itself. If you get power right, of course, you need more of this critical infrastructure. Who is paying? Who is bringing it in? Who is going to be responsible? And how costly is this infrastructure? So it is very important to look at these three things critically and then know how to resolve the problems associated with the three. Once we resolve the problems associated with the three, then I think we have, like W. Rose to say, we have satisfied the conditions for a takeoff.
All right. I remember like something like in 1999, when we were moving into the current democracy that we have now. I usually say it here that as of that time, the problem of Nigeria were already were defined. The people knew what they wanted, no? Because now again we are coming back to the infrastructure because it is important that you lay the foundation because without the foundation, whatever you build is not going to stand the test of time. Okay, I want you to respond to a curiosity that I have. Now, we say, first of all, we didn't educate the younger generation about the importance of internet, about the importance of going online. They have educated themselves, the young Nigerians, no, those are they call the Yahoo boys or whatever you want to call them, because they knew that they couldn't wait. The government is too slow, the system is too slow for them, so they went ahead and jumped into it and they grabbed what they want to get. I'm not really for the morality, whether it is good or bad, is not what I'm really talking about. It's just the know-how. If they could manage to make money out of the internet, it means that the government of Nigeria could also have make a lot of money from the internet if you have set it up to work for the country. Because you cannot simply tell me now that the young Nigeria somewhere in Ogun State or in Edo State or in Lagos is smarter than Nigeria. It is not smarter than Nigeria. They do not even have infrastructure. How could they manage to be able to make money out of the internet and the country cannot set it up to make money for the people? So where are we really getting it wrong here? But what could we do to make sure that the Nigerian people benefit from the age of digital economy? Because if other people can do it, meaning the government can do it.
Well, you have to understand the characteristics of the Nigerian society and the kind of government that runs that society. One of the fastest, if not the fastest animal in the world is the cheetah. And one of the slowest animals in the world is, I suppose, the hippopotamus. So there is a difference between what you call the cheetah generation and we, who have become more or less the hippopotamus generation. So the cheetah generation, before you know it, they are gone because they are impatient, like you said. They are internet savvy. They are very brilliant. I will tell you that we have the most brilliant set of young people anywhere in the world. So it is very important for us to then begin to understand how this younger generation is preparing itself or is even prepared to take the world by the storm. We have had so many of them breaking into the banks. We have had many of them doing exploit all over the world, positive things that they are doing all over the world. And you begin to marvel at the capacity of Nigerians of that age to do anything they wanted with computer, the digital age. But the hippopotamus generation, which unfortunately is also the one that runs the country, is too slow in its thinking. It's too slow in its thinking. It's too slow in its activities. And so they feel the whole world is still out there in front of you, which is the mindset I have talked about. They think like Nigerians of old, it is bad upbringing to be anxious. You take your time, you take things easy, you go one at a time. It's still that old traditional perspective of life. But the younger generation thinks that what it wanted cannot wait till tomorrow. In fact, they should have had it yesterday. So that's the kind of, you know, um, what we are facing now. There is a generational issue. The case of the digital age versus the coal age, so to speak. So that's the problem we are in now. We have to begin to also tutor well, not only tutor, they are also aware of what is happening. But what you are trying to say is that that generation should also yield way for a younger generation to run things. In or those who have moved so close to them as to also imbibe their capacities or the lack of it. So now the younger generation is getting very impatient, and you also see it in the political terrain where they are saying, "Oh, candidate A is too old, candidate B is too old, candidate C is our own." So these are the kind of things that shows their impatience in trying to move ahead. So everybody knows that the digital age is here. Everybody knows that we must move into that age, but there are certain impediments. In the case of Nigeria, there is a population of 200 million, a huge market for anything, anybody. But the regulatory authorities, the regulatory mechanisms are also moving so slowly in tandem with the age running things. And they cannot be too careful. We know that. But in being too careful also, how fast enough are you moving? That's
That's a good question. And what if we, again, I'm not looking at it from the point of view of what is moral or what is not moral. We can actually take up that argument on another occasion. I'm just looking at the know how, the possibility that is available on the internet, that is available on the smartphone that people have on their hands, which the Nigerian youth are leveraging. What if, for example, because since we are living in the binary age, if we also want to put it like that, in the age of number, we have always lived in it anyway, but this time it is different. Take, for example, of generative AI, which is the new form of technology that we should be using. It's available to everybody. It's not available to people in the United States or the people in India alone. It's available for everyone. Say maybe now, finally, let me just take the argument away now. Say, finally, we have decided to look at our history. Let's rewrite it. Now we have tools on our hand to do it. We cannot simply use the old tools to do this job. There are technology that we can use. There are people who know how to do this. Now the government finally say, okay, in this country, there are people who know how to go into the internet and find the right information that we use. These people have been doing it up until this time, going to steal money. Now we want to reverse it. I'm going to invest money on you. Do what you have always done, but this time, this is what you are going to be looking for. Because the one who have the right information will always dominate the market. It has always been like this. Of the system. Somebody need to pay for it. I'm trying to say, if there is any way the Nigerian government, for example, can tap into the knowledge that the younger generation of Nigeria have to be able to manipulate internet and use it for the interest of Nigeria. Is that even can we even think about that?
yes. Many of us know that that's a possibility. Many of us also know that that is the right way to go. Well, we are not going on that route simply because perhaps those who run the government are too suspicious of the younger generation. And apart from that, also, there is the tendency to see the younger generation as unruly and, of course, in discipline. But it's because you are looking at it from the prism of perhaps the 1% that is crooked. There are thousands, if not millions, of others who are ready to go straight, who are ready to, deploy different tools and their knowledge to ensure that Nigeria moves into this new age, firmly and significantly. But it will also mean having a new set of people at the different layers of government. Right now, the government itself is populated by those who are still a little bit rustic. So we also have, as a society, to go shopping for those that we think should take us deeply into the 21st century. There are too many things repressing us in the 20th century and even still casting a glance back at the 19th century and 20th century. I'm a historian. I know the vestiges of these centuries, the 19th, the 20th, that are yet to go away and are still being used to repress society and the younger generation. But what we are trying to say is that if we are going to continue to leverage on the values and the beliefs and perspectives of the years and centuries gone by, we also have to use certain things during those centuries to tutor the younger generation on how to move into the 21st century with an eye on digitization and your mind on the values and ideals of centuries gone past. China has done it. China has done it with Confucianism. Confucianism, its ideals with its values, is now a very potent tool in the hands of the Chinese, even though they had abandoned it before to try to modernize. But they then discovered that in modernizing, they still needed the values of Confucius. So the same thing with us in Africa. Yes, we can move into the 21st century. We can move very well into digital age without having to suspend the ideals and values of the 19th and 20th century. All we need to do is to look at STEM and transform STEM into STEAM. Nigerian government, for instance, has been saying, oh, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and then we are telling them that that is STEM, yes, but you won't get it right until you make it STEAM. You bring in the arts into it. When you bring the arts into it, you begin to tutor the children what they are all about, where they are headed, and how they can help their people to understand what these things are all about. And so, until we change our educational system from STEM to STEAM, then, of course, we will be moving on the same spot.
Thank you so much for that. All right, you did make mention of China, and that leads me to model. I know the last time that we talked about the Nigerian economy, we did talk about model, where you share with us different kind of. Yeah. All right. Now, looking at the digital economy today, again, is there a model that we can look into? I'm not saying we are going to copy that model, but we are going to learn from it and build on our own. Again, it's not like we don't have anything to build upon. We do have a lot of great history that we could actually build upon to grow. But we have abandoned everything because, like you said, we are product of our history. And the history like we have it in the past few centuries have really been ringed against us and sometimes by us. So we are going to suffer the consequence of that. And maybe when we suffer enough, then we are going to rewrite the history again. So, but let's leave that apart now. the model. Are there some model out there that we can look into and say, okay, this one look like what we might be interested in, that we can study and sort of replicate or build upon that will work for us in Nigeria or in some other African countries?
Well, unfortunately, the leadership structure and processes have tried to ape the West in everything we do. But of course, that has always brought us to a sorry pass. There are better models in the world based on our experiences, our culture, our values, our orientation that we could leverage on to also begin to recalibrate, because that's what we need, recalibrate our existence, our economy, our society to say, okay, yes, we have these things, only we have abandoned them. How do you marry tradition and modernity to form what should take us out of this inactivity or inaction or this slow progress? Well, for those of us who teach history, we have seen that, like I said, China has gone back to its traditional values. India is using its values. South Korea is using its values. Even Japan. So if we are serious about aligning our tradition with these modern structures and processes, then of course we need to understand how those countries did it, especially Japan. You know, there was a time, yes, Japan also depended a lot on Western processes, but at the end of the day, it only did that to try to copy, and now they have copied. Everything is being taught in Japanese language. Everything is produced in Japanese concepts, you know, and so who says we can't do it? But you must have a government that is ready to create a new set of people who will go out there. You know, one of the tragic things about Nigeria is that when you send our diplomats out, you send them out only to go and enjoy themselves. If, our diplomats must be given a different mandate. And that mandate is, this is where we are headed in the next 50 years. Go out there as our diplomats and get as much of these things copied, borrowed, stolen, you know, let's get it done. But I am not aware, maybe they are doing it, but I am not aware of any of our diplomats being chartered to go after some of these. Once Chinese go of when they visited the Philips factory, Holland, at some point, and they were accused of photographing everything with their tie clips. You know, that became a problem. That became a diplomatic problem. Of course, China knew what it wants. And the same thing with the African Union. China gave us the headquarters. They built it for us at no cost, donated it to the African Union. But there are those who are alleging that every room in that building is listening with listening devices. So for those who know what they want, they go out and get it. But for our countries in Africa, we just see everything at the level of officialdom. Then, of course, you go and retire after that. No value added. So our embassies, our high commissions all over the world must be turned into new structures of creating markets to everything back home. But you can only do that if the government itself has created the grand strategy that will begin to pack all these things together so that we have a long-term um, orientation or understanding of where we are. But right now, it's always about immediate. So let's have our short-term, our medium-term, our long-term goals, and let's deploy everything that we have into it: the university system, the military system, the intelligence system, the embassies, everything. Let's deploy it. But right now, the educational sector does not know what the military sector is doing, doesn't know what the transport sector is doing. Everybody, each person on his own, each group on his own. My God, for us all, that's what we are doing. There's no harmonization of that future, that critical future that we must build. That's the
That is
objective.
that is a key point. That is a key point there. In that, you know, if there is no harmony, if there is no harmonization, like you said, all the information that we have is useless because we said again, this is the age of information. Now, the young Nigerians out there connecting with their telephone and their computer are able to go into some of the hard archive in the world and tap into money. So I was saying that the Nigerian government, if they know what they wanted, if they know where they are going, if they have a direction, could say, this is an army. Let me use it for myself. You know, there are a lot of countries in the world. You just made mention of something important. I don't know if people were paying attention. That after China have built the African Union for African people, which of course should have even be a disgrace to the African people that somebody is building a house for you. They make sure that each room is equipped with listening devices. Now, this is a question in case people didn't listen. Who is listening to that conversation? Do we even care? You see, the thing at the end of the day is that you cannot eat your cake and have it. It's not possible. So, as Africans and as Nigeria in particular, we must look at our resources. Everything about us, everything related to us is opportunity. What are we going to do with this opportunity? It's not enough to just simply say, these are Yahoo boys. It's nonsense. These are boys with intelligence. How do we want to use it? Because if the government refuses to use that intelligence, another person or another sources or another thing, call it maybe these selfish people, they can use it anyway. Because I believe that knowledge is neutral. It's not good or bad. It depends on what you do with it. The internet is not an evil thing. It's not a good thing. It's just a neutral thing. But what do you want to do with it? Look, for example, how many millions and billions of dollars the United States spent in the age of the Cold War for information, because information is expensive. You need to weaponize the people with the right information, then they can defend themselves. In Nigeria, do we know who is tapping into our sources of information? The people that are coming into our country, do we know what they are looking for?
Yeah. You know, one of the greatest tools for development or progress of any country are the policies or policy discussions taking place in several places at several levels. So when you discuss policy issues, we know the country that will be needing how many units of equipment. Once they have that information, of course, They are businessmen. They pass their information, that information to their businessmen, and before you know it, the business delegation is coming from China. It's coming from Korea because they already have prior information, and that's part of what they do. The information about agriculture, what are you talking about? What do you propose to do with cocoa in the next 10 years? They already have your information because they have listened in, and so they also move in. They also have an understanding of how to underplay the importance of what you are producing because they will tell you they will divert to Brazil to buy their cocoa, and so you beg them with cocoa because you have produced more than enough of the things you required, and because they have the information already, they know how to undercut you. So these are the kind of things we are talking about. Well, in the case of our people, um, it's not as if we don't know what to do. We do. Um, and we don't talk about it because there is too much mutual suspicion. You know, one of the greatest mistakes Nigeria made was not building on the Biafran knowledge after the war. You just allowed all those advantages constructed by Biafra to just fizzle out. No country does that. No country does that. You know, and even when you look at what is happening now, it's not as if some groups of people from the East cannot replicate what we are talking about. But because the suspicion in the political terrain has continued to prevent that kind of evolutionary process that will create Nigerians out of the polyglot number of people that we have is part of the problem. If you have knowledge coming out from the Southeast, for instance, and the government has the money, the resources to actually fund that kind of project, is it ready to do so? Because of the mutual suspicion going on in the country. Is it ready to do so? Because, you know, there is this misunderstanding, there is this issue, there is this problem. So until we create Nigerians out of Nigeria, we have common values, common sense of purpose, common direction, then of course we are not going to go anywhere. Even with the ICT we are talking about. You know, it's for you to pigeonhole a group of people and say, oh, they are Yahoo Yahoo. Oh, all these drug people, they always come from this place. You know, all these the ritual killings, they always come from this place. So pigeonholing is also, you know, making sure that we are not making progress. So there is a big problem in this country, and we have been telling them that you have to come to an understanding. We cannot continue like this. We have a country of 200 million people doing 200 million different things. This is the new Tower of Babel.
It's incredible. You know, I also find it sort of abhorrent, you know, that looking at the resources, because I repeat again, that the country is full of resources, no, but we just are not tapping into it. You see, you made mention of the Nigerian Civil War, what the Biafra did, that we are just refusing to leverage. I'm not saying that other part of the country are not hardworking or are not intelligent, but we are speaking from evidence. Look at the machine that the Biafra built. If we have, because look at what Germany did, look at what the United States did. Most of their, because you don't create F-35 first. You first of all have F-16, because without F-16, there is no F-35. If we destroy F-16, there will not be F-35. I'm talking of the US fighters, no? That is the same thing that the Russians did. If the Biafran could manage to develop weapon, we're just talking of weapon, we can't say let's destroy it. We need to take it, the Nigerian government, because at the end of the war, Gowon said there was no victor, there was no vanquish. Fine. Good. It means that we have accepted that we are brothers and sisters. It means that everything that happened during the war should be used for the interest of this country, should be used for the good of this country. That includes those who died, that includes the information that we managed to gather, that includes everything that was said, and that includes the machine that was invented. It should have been given into the Nigerian military. It should have been studied. Every little detail of it should have been studied, so that we will use it to build the Nigerian military industrial complex to rival anyone in the neighborhood and in the world. But why are we unable to do that?
Well, the ruling elite in Nigeria is a backward-looking elite. That is the biggest problem we have in this country. It's a backward-looking elite. And that's why even today, the educational sector is more or less unraveling. It's very unfortunate. You need to pump money into the sector. They accuse our intellectuals of not rising up to the challenge. And I ask you, what challenge? The sector you are not funding? You know, and you say, oh, yeah, then go and get grants from abroad. But of course, you needed to have done good research based on the funding you have given them to be able to compete overseas for grants. Yes, we get grants in spite of that. But even when you then get it, there is what you call the single treasury account, in which all the grants must first of all come into the central bank from anywhere, especially for federal universities. A fund will first of all go into the Central Bank of Nigeria. And we have had experiences of such funds staying in the CBN for 6 months before being transferred to the university system. So, what's the sense in that? They are killing the system. There is no fund that comes from abroad and goes straight to the university system any longer. It must go first into the central bank. Then you sit back and then fold your arms until the central bank people are ready to release the money to the university. I am not saying something theoretically. I am saying things that I have gone through. You know, so everybody is getting fed up. Everybody is getting fed up.
But so, it's even quite okay. Please go on.
You know, so it's part of the problem we are dealing with. So the system must be supported to lift itself up. Then of course we will be able to do what we have to do, because even if you are going to steal technology, you need funding. Even if you are going to do what they call reverse engineering, you need funding. You know? You accuse our professors of technology or engineering of sitting there. Yeah, you don't fund them. Give them good funding. Give them mandates to say, this is what we want. Yes, we are cooperating with industries now, and industry is helping the university system more than government, which is fine. But still, are you giving the universities autonomy to say, okay, you are on your own, do what you want. This is our understanding, this is our agreement. Well, on the one hand, you are giving autonomy. On the other hand, you are controlling everything.
It's quite sad sometimes. It's really quite sad, no? Because when you don't have a clear direction where you are going, of course, like you said, we are 200 million people. Everybody is doing what they like, no? It's not going to work. It's not going to work like that. We need a kind of a clear idea. As a Nigerian, I want you to tell me what I should live and die for. This is why I have you as a government. I am giving part of who I am to you, delegating you as my representative. You should defend me. You see, I think there is too much at stake in the country to just play it with the hands of levity. There is too much at stake. Because in this country, in Nigeria, if we don't do the right thing, we will be treated like little kids. Other people will come and build Aso Rock for us. They will install their listening tools there while we are just making noise. They are listening to us in Washington, in Beijing. And we think that we are cheating on some Igbo people, or some Hausa, or some Yoruba people. We are cheating ourselves because we are not mature enough to understand that we need to be a people. It is our fault. It's not even the fault of the English. It's not even the fault of the United Kingdom. It is our fault because we, as a people, are supposed to be mature enough to decide how we want to live, and even to the other side, how we want to die. It is we, as a people, decide this. If you are not mature enough to decide that, it is your fault. It is not the fault of who is enslaving you. If you are tired of it, then change it. All right, now let's look for a way to look at the younger people, because as we can see, the older generation of Nigerians have failed the people. And by extension, the Nigerian government have failed the people. Because I'm very careful of what I'm saying here. It is not just few people in Aso Rock. The people also are part of the game. Because if the Nigerian people, I'm not talking of the government, those that are not in the government, if they were studying their ground, those in Aso Rock will be afraid. But if it is a game where we are all playing in, I give you 1 naira so you can talk for me, we are both in the game together. Okay, now let's look at the younger people who sort of are smarter. Can they look for a way? Can they play this game so that they can win? And by extension, we can all win. What chances do they have, the younger people, tapping into technology?
Well, it's very important that you mentioned that. Unlike the last generation, and I will tell you I belong to the last generation, because when we were growing up in the 70s and 80s, we lived very well. And the governments of those periods still had some kind of direction, so to speak. But because we lived very well, we could strike out on our own, do our things, go our way. But this generation, especially those that came after the structural adjustment program of 1986, had never had it easy in any respect. So what they have ended up doing is to constitute themselves into a kind of ethnic category. And when I say ethnic, if we say we have 250 ethnic groups in Nigeria, the younger generation has become the 251st ethnic group. They are creating a new group amongst themselves. You might not be Yoruba, but they will use Yoruba to sing, you will enjoy it. Yorubas will use Igbo language to sing, and you will enjoy it. So they have constituted themselves into a category of people that is beginning to see not only the generation above them as anachronism. They have even seen the government as being anachronistic. So in the next, they are going to ignore the state. They are going to ignore the elderly ones, strike out on their own, and begin new processes of recreating not only this country, but also recreating human relations. And it's beginning to start. You know, it's my generation and above, that still sees you as Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa. For them, they don't think along that line, which is a healthy thing developing in this country. It is not clear to so many people yet, but for those of us who study society, for those of us who are students of society, we have seen it. That there is a new reality, a new orientation. They don't care. You are Yoruba, you are Hausa, you are Igbo, they don't care. They bond so well together. They intermarry, they do businesses together. They are on their own, they are moving on. And so by the time that generation moves up, we only hope that there won't be a regression into atavism, Stone Age sensibilities like we exhibit now, that if they continue that way.
All right. Uh, that is that is a model I really like a lot. No, that is hope. But how can we encourage more of that in the country so that we can move faster in that direction? Because, like I said again, that is our hope that the younger generation can reform Nigeria. They can build a better Nigeria for themselves. After all, we are talking of their future, so that we can have a better Nigeria in the years to come. How can we encourage that more so that this shameful generation that have shamed the country, they can slowly die out. The younger one that are proud of themselves, that are ready to build the country, can slowly replace them. How can we encourage that even more?
Well, I think the best thing is not to bring in your encouragement from above. Let them continue that subaltern approach, building from below. Let them continue with that. Because by the time you begin to bring in your suggestion from above and you begin to dilute what they are thinking, what they are doing, you are slowing down the process. Rather, it's they who will encourage us rather than we encouraging them. It's too late in the day to continue to talk down on these youths. They are the ones who will be starting to talk up to us now to say, no, Daddy, that's not the way to think about it. What we hear today is the jackpot syndrome, everybody running away. It's just a few percentage of the young people running away. And I can tell you, for everyone that runs out of the country, there are 8. Well, there is another one waiting to go, but there are 8 working assiduously to make life better for themselves here, making sure that the narrative here changes. And it's really very encouraging. I look at them, I understand what they are doing, and I am deeply encouraged. So what we need to do is not to encourage them. What we need to do is to dialogue with them to try to understand what they are doing and how they are doing.
To conclude the conversation, looking at how Nigeria can tap more into the digital economy and benefit more from it, because we really do have enough potential as a country, Nigeria. If Nigerian economy were to take off, it would be a surprise to the world, because it's so powerful in every respect of it. The consumption is there, the people are there, the resources are there. Anyway, how would you conclude the conversation? What would be your final thought here in terms of how Nigeria can really become a key player in the digital economy?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do now is to change the curriculum in our higher educational institutions. Let's change the curriculum and begin to also meet the younger generation halfway. Some of them are self-taught, self-tutored on the digital space, but since we are still in control of the educational institutions, we should also try as much as possible to modernize e-coaching, e-learning, which will eventually lead to e-commerce, e-money, e-everything. So let's look at the curriculum all over again. Even in history, we are also going along that route, teaching history in such a way as to hold on to the past, but also take them in direction of how to begin to understand the present and the future, and so that we don't slip back into Stone Age sensibility.
I appreciate the conversation. I really do. Thank you. How can people connect with you? Please, this is very important. Please go ahead and do that.
Well, I am on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook, and I also have an email, and I check my email every day. I have not become that too old to check My email, I have a Gmail. The university one is there, but the Gmail is more accessible at olutayo27@gmail.com. That's fine. And of course, my mobile number, +234 802 3151 255. I'm here, working silently for the country.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, sir. I really do. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.